let's get into some reports from Dalhousie University from the lab.
Yeah.
And the first report I want to talk about was released Monday, I think, or Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. So this is about gardening. So you were talking about raising livestock at home. Let's talk about raising vegetables at home. So according to your report, I have a copy here, and I'll put links into the show notes so everyone can go get the copies. They're both ones are public now. 1 million households in Canada intend to garden for the first time. I looked at this in this, Saskatchewan, different provinces. So what did you learn from here? I mean, in some ways, I guess it's no surprise a little bit because prices, what a great time to garden at home. Prices are going through the roof.
Yeah.
So is that the key driver, do you think, or what's behind all this?
Well, there's lots of things going on. I'm just curious that, like, you're a great cook, Michael, but are you a gardener?
Well, no, but
You're
no
not
with
perfect
an
at
asterisk.
everything.
No with an asterisk. And the asterisk is my father-in-law, my Portuguese father-in-law, is an amazing gardener.
Okay.
And basically they give us all, they're seniors, so they don't eat a lot. We get everything he makes. So herbs, I'm limited to herbs, but I'm starting to think, and I don't really I'm just looking at the backyard. My wife laughs at me when I say we should garden. She goes, "Why? We've got a master gardener. He follows the moon phases and everything, and he makes amazing stuff." And
It's
he
an
asks
art.
us what
Oh,
to plant.
absolutely. Yeah. It's there's a lot of science to it, and so this is the second time we've actually surveyed
Mm-hmm.
Canadians on this issue. The first time was actually
Angus
in
Reid, right?
2000.
We're partnered with
That's right.
Angus Reid in this one, yeah.
Yeah, and so thank you, Angus Reed, for all the data. Back in 2020, 2 years ago, we did survey Canadians. The gardening rate in Canada was 51%,
Mm-hmm.
which was actually higher than expected. This time around, it's 52%. Now you're saying, well, how come if there's 1 million more gardeners, why aren't we seeing a higher number? Well, basically, what we're finding out is that a lot of people are giving up.
Yeah.
But the number of people starting gardens will outnumber the people who are giving up gardening this year, essentially.
Well, it's like an over-under. I saw that, and I guess, and we talked about this on our episode for the research. It's hard, right? Being a gardener's hard.
Absolutely. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Now, there's some products out there that make it less a lot of work, so to speak. I was looking at some products from Lee Valley Tools out of Ottawa. They've got some above-ground things, if you want to get your feet wet, because I was looking at them for myself to raise some carrots, do some carrots or something. But so there's
That's right.
But the net of it is, if I do the math, more people this year will be having a home garden, even with the ones that stop, right? So there's momentum. There is certainly a momentum behind it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so garden centers will be busy over the next little while, and that's a great thing. I mean, for education, people will have probably a better appreciation for what our farmers are doing. And gardening is hard work. And the other thing we also noticed that 41% of people who intend to garden this year want to do it to save money. Now, I don't know about you, Michael, but I'm not entirely convinced you can actually save money when you garden unless you have capacity and you commit to gardening for several years to amortize some of the things that you bought at Lee Valley. It can get very, if you go over the top with gardening, it can cost you a lot of money. So that's the thing about gardening. So a lot of people are unlike 2 years ago, they were pushed because of some food insecurity, overpowering emotion.
Or they were looking for a hobby, right? They were looking for a hobby too. I mean, people had more time on their hands.
And still today, it's the same thing. The vast majority of gardeners see it as a hobby, which I think it is. But I've always believed that gardening is very much about allowing city dwellers or anybody to connect with agriculture, to connect with the earth, with Mother Earth in some serene way. And if you feel proud about growing your own tomatoes, your own cucumbers, power to you. It's great. And the other thing that came out of the two other things that came out of our survey this year that didn't come out before, people believe that what they grow is of better quality than at the store. And two, half of new gardeners this year will be under the age of 35.
So interesting, right? I mean, there's so many benefits. I'm looking at the why you don't, and number one is I don't have space in my backyard. Again, I'm going to put a link. I'm not sponsored here by Lee Valley Tools, but they've got some things that make it easier to
It's a great
grow.
shop in Ottawa, and
Yeah.
I think they have stores. Where
Coast
do
to
they have
coast.
stores?
Yeah,
Yeah, coast to coast. Yeah,
they're coast to coast, and they've got a great online site.
that's right.
I know the folks, Jason and the folks from Lee Valley Tools. They run a great
Yeah.
business, and they're very passionate about their business. Anyway, so that's one study. The next study, which is I found super interesting, is this idea of plant-based versus meat in terms of
Yes.
you call them analogs. So basically, you compare. And I've had this question. We've kind of talked about it. Okay, with the rising prices of the trifecta, is this the doorway for meat plant-based substitutes? Because we certainly saw lots of them at CL. So what did the study tell you?
Well, I mean, back in the fall when we started to work on this with Better Card Analytics with Melanie Morrison, who we had on our podcast a while ago. I mean, they do amazing work. And so I sat down with Melanie and said, listen, why don't we look into diets, the cost of a diet, the omnivore diet versus vegans, and who is actually spending more money out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to a point where we thought, this is complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, as you can imagine, Michael, I mean, you can go in many different directions with diets, right? So
Sure.
that's why we basically stuck to a very simple formula. Let's look at the real stuff versus analogs. And that's it. So we looked at turkey versus plant-based turkey. We looked at beef versus plant-based beef and so on. And we don't use plant-based in our report. We use vegetable analogs because we a lot of the livestock industry in general is not overly comfortable with the term plant-based because they actually believe themselves that
the
their
meat's
product
plant.
is
They eat
also
the plants, right? Right.
And to a certain extent, I actually agree with that. I mean,
Yeah.
and I've never been comfortable with the term plant-based, really. So that's why we call them vegetable analogs in our report.
I think we got to
So
come up with a better name than that, by the way.
yeah, I know.
Analogs.
Exactly. The
Analogs.
nomenclature, I mean, it's like anything. The nomenclature of a category does evolve over time. But this report really, and so before, I mean, last year or 2 years ago, I thought, yeah, absolutely. Plant-based products or vegetable analogs are more expensive. But with higher meat prices, I thought, maybe we're looking at, a wash here. Both would be the same. So we looked into we actually collected over 1 million data points.
Wow.
1 million in just
Thanks
a few
to Better
days.
Cart, right? I mean, that's data. You're so impressed with that Better Cart data, right?
Man, it's just incredible. Oh, sorry. We looked at both categories. We thought we're looking at a wash here. Either way, it's probably the same price. No. My goodness. So we surveyed prices from January to March, only to realize that on average, vegetable analogs are 38% more expensive than meat products. Ouch. Even with the increases we've seen recently with beef and chicken and pork and accusation of collusion as well on top of that. I mean, I was just floored. What were you surprised by results?
Yes and no. I mean, just just speaking anecdotally, when I go out to shop, when I buy like a meat substitute for my burgers, I'm like, it's not cheap. It's not inexpensive. And we've talked about on the show, if we go back a bunch of episodes where we've had analogs, the pricing's all over the map, right? Like, you talked about one of the issues is they got to get their heads around pricing because, it's sky high or it's low, and where.
But I think I do think that the category is at the crossroads here. So we now know that it's not competitive. It exists to create this. We all know that it creates. I don't think the category was created for meat eaters. It was created for curious consumers who are looking to for some variety when it comes to proteins, and that's
flexitarians. Flexitarians,
yeah, exactly.
Like to call
and there's
them,
about 3.5 million flexitarians out there. Part-time vegetarians looking at reducing the amount of animal proteins they ingest, which is great. But if you're asking me right now, from a socioeconomic perspective, if vegetable analogs are an option for consumers on a tight budget, the answer is no.
Mm.
And I think it's going to be a problem over the next
It,
few months, over the
is
next
it
few years.
is it a result of the high cost of? Is it a scale issue? Is it a high cost of processing? You would think if the industry was thinking about this, they would take the opportunity to lower the prices to do exactly what we hope to see or what we thought we might see, which is, now's the time. Strike now. Meat prices are going up. Never a better chance. Never a better time to try alternatives. But it doesn't seem like that
Yeah.
coordination is happening, right?
I mean, on this show with trying stuff, we've tried a few products, and
Mm-hmm.
frankly, I think, and you would agree with me on that, Michael, is that products are getting better,
Yeah.
but they're getting more expensive to make as well. The
Mm.
fascination of actually recreating the taste that people are accustomed to with the trifecta within the
Mm.
trifecta, like beef and chicken and pork, is getting companies to spend a lot of money to produce
Mm.
analogs. That's the one thing, but the other thing, what we've noticed with the data that came out of Better Card Analytics is that beef prices or meat prices did go up, but analogs have gone up as well in the winter, which I thought was very interesting. And
Interesting.
so you're in. So to answer your question, I think you got a costing issue to
Mm-hmm.
produce these products, and two, margins. I think basically grocers are committed to make these products. They're committed to a price point,
Mm.
and I'm not sure over time because sales are starting to cap in
Yeah, I
plant
guess they
based.
see. I
So
guess I guess the grocers might look at it. We'd love to get a grocer on here. We'll have to get a grocer on, talk about this. Maybe they see it as a specialty product and then price it accordingly. And specialty products tend to be priced as if the people who are buying them are a specialty buyer and perhaps have a little
yeah,
more budget to spend, which is probably the case heretofore, if I can say heretofore on this podcast.
but if you're asking me if is the category positioned to convert people
Mm.
from a dietary perspective, the answer is absolutely not.
Well, we'll have to get my friend Joey Bernardo, who's now vice president of meat and seafood at Longo's. Great friend of mine, and now he's in charge of that. So we'll have to either get him on or get him in behind the scenes and see what he thinks about um, all this stuff, meat substitutes and all that. So that'll
Meat
be kind of
substitutes.
fun.